Come to Emotionally Healthy Spirituality Day by Day, Week 2, Day 4. And we come to 1 Kings chapter 19. Now, a little bit of preface on this passage. It would be helpful for you to read chapter 18 first. Elijah the prophet, by God's command, had forecasted that rain would not fall upon the earth for 2.5 years because the people under King Ahab were worshiping the Baals and going in a direction contrary to God. Finally, there's a moment where God is going to bring an end to this drought, but he orchestrates a show-off between King Ahab, Queen Jezebel, and the 450 prophets of Baal, and Elijah. And they go to this mountain, Mount Carmel, and on the top of this mountain, they each construct altars to their God and pray for fire from heaven to fall down to consume the offering on the altar. The 450 prophets of Baal pray and fast. They cut themselves, they worship, and nothing happens. Finally, Elijah, a sole prophet, says, you really need to douse this altar, the wood, and all that's on it, and fill a little trench around the altar with water, because this is too easy for my God. He prays, calls down fire from heaven. God not only consumes the offering, but the wood for the offering, the stones, the water in the trough. And Elijah the prophet says, God really is God, and we need to stop this heresy of worshiping these other gods. And he ordered the people to seize the false prophets and to have them killed, and that's what is done. And then Elijah tells the king, go ahead, go to your house, eat and drink and be merry, because the drought is going to be over. I'm going to pray to the Lord, because the people fell down and worshiped God at this great miracle. So Elijah goes up and he prays, and it begins to rain. But when Ahab goes home, he tells Queen Jezebel what had happened. Now, she was a pretty ruthless individual, and she sends a messenger to Elijah to say, more so to me, if I don't do to you what happened to those 450 prophets of Baal by the end of today. And so Elijah is afraid, and this is what happens in chapter 19. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, so may the gods do to me and more also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of these by this time tomorrow. Then he was afraid, and he arose and ran for his life, and he came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat under a broom tree, and he asked that he might die, saying, it is enough now, O Lord, take away my life, for I am no better than my fathers. And he lay down and slept under a broom tree, and behold, an angel touched him, and said to him, arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on hot stones, and a jar of water, and he ate and drank, and lay down again. And the angel of the Lord came to him a second time, and touched him, and said, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. And he arose and ate and drank, and went into the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, the mountain of God. There he came to a cave and lodged in it, and behold, the word of the Lord came to him, and said to him, what are you doing here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, for the God of hosts, for the people of Israel, have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword, and I, even I alone, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And he said, go out and stand on the mount before the Lord. And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and a strong wind tore the mountains, and broke to pieces the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And Elijah heard it. He wrapped his face with his cloak, and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him that said, What are you doing here, Elijah? And he said, I have been very jealous for the Lord, the God of hosts. For the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I alone, am left, and they seek my life to take it away. And the Lord said to him, Go, return to your way to the wilderness of Damascus, and when you arrive you shall anoint Hazael to be king over Syria, and Jehu the son of Nishmi you shall anoint to be king over Israel, and Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel Meholah you shall anoint as prophet in your place. And the one who escapes from the sword of Hazael shall Jehu pursue to death, and the one who escapes the sword of Jehu shall Elijah put to death. Yet I will leave 7,000 in Israel, all the knees that have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth that has not kissed him. There's more to the story, but that's enough to make our point for today. The idea is that Elijah was walking in the power and might of God. He was doing great things, serving boldly, running ragged from end to end, from battle scene to battle scene, if you will. And yet he was burnt out. He was overwhelmed. He had come to the end of himself. He had just defeated 450 prophets of Baal. He was standing boldly there by himself, and he commanded the people who had come to see this sign, not sure which way they would go, to take these prophets and kill them, and they listened to him. He commanded the king to go back to his palace and to eat and drink and be merry, and the king listened to him. And then he gets this word from the queen that she is going to send someone to take his life, and he cowers in fear, and he runs and he hides. You know, sometimes when we're challenged, when we're confronted, when people say harsh things, when people speak against us or we're criticized, it hurts. It hurts because it strikes at those things that we talked about yesterday, our pride, our need for power or position, our desire to be accepted. And yet, when we spend time with God, when we're more sure of who we are in light of His grace, these forces, these assaults don't have an impact on us. We're not tossed to and fro by every wind of doctrine. We're not scattered or scared because people say harsh things about us or threaten us. Because we're sure of who we are. We're sure of our position. We're sure of our standing. The Lord understands Elijah's need. When Elijah runs and hides and he's underneath the broom tree and he's pleading with God to take his life, the Lord gives him rest. The Lord sends an angel to bring food and water, not just once, but twice, to wake him up, to send him on his way. And then the Lord gives Elijah a glimpse of himself, not in earthquake or fire or storm or howling wind, but in the sweet whisper of God. And Elijah is reminded that he's not alone, that there are 7,000 others in the nation of Israel who have not bowed the knee to Baal. And he gives Elijah a purpose, that he still has work to do, that there are kings to anoint, he has to demonstrate his power yet again. And he's to anoint a successor, someone to walk with him, someone that he's going to disciple or mentor. There is this refreshing, not only of rest, of time with God in His presence, of the physical things like food and water, and also a reminder that he's not alone, that there are others who are faithful. We have to be reminded in the hurriedness and the busyness of our life that we have to tend to the physical. Racing to burnout doesn't make sense. Racing to impress others, to fit in as much as we can in these 24 hours doesn't make sense. God didn't wire us that way. He didn't design us that way. When we're pushing that hard and that fast, we're not listening for His voice. Now, I'm preaching to the choir, I know, and I'm sitting among you because I'm one that often struggles with this whole idea of making time and space for God. And yet we need to be reminded. So the question for us is, what would it look like for you to respect yourself with the God-given human limitations that God has put on you? How do you understand your boundaries, your limits? How do you understand when you need to go to Him? How are you okay with rest, renewal? Not laziness, not avoiding work, but rest, renewal, good, solid rhythms to life, knowing when you're at the knife's edge, when you're full throttle and you're ready to burn out, and how to tend to that need to back off and to slow down and to keep from getting yourself in that position again. Pray that God would give you wisdom and insight if this is your struggle on why you live that way, who it is that you're trying to impress or what drives you, and may you find rest and peace in Him. Amen.